I met many celebrities long before my film career had ever started. I used to meet these celebrities when I used to work at the hotel in Halifax at the Lord Nelson Hotel. I came across this guy right here, Dan Aykroyd. All of you who are unfamiliar with Dan Aykroyd, he has epilepsy. And I remember going upstairs to his room to serve him at the Lord Nelson Hotel. Believe it or not, we had a complaint on him. The complaint was about somebody was smoking weed on the floor Dan Aykroyd was at. I believe it was the 4th floor. And it was coming from his room. And the hotel didn't know how to handle the complaint. There was people on the floor, on the same floor where Dan Aykroyd, and not realizing they were sharing the same room, the same floor that Dan Aykroyd was on. I remember that. So I got the opportunity to talk to him, and his guard was up, because he's a celebrity. And I remember telling him, Dan, relax. I'm not a fan of the Ghostbusters that you did. I'm not a fan of that TV show you did, that gospel show, the Soul Train, or whatever you call it. Just wasn't a fan of it. And I was familiar with him from his movie when he did the Ghostbusters, but Dan Aykroyd was not the first celebrity that I had met when I worked at the Lord Nelson Hotel. This guy right here, Ozzy Osbourne. I remember when I met him in 2008. I helped him carry his luggage and his many of suits up to his room in the Lord Nelson Hotel, from his bus to the hotel room. Just delivering his many coats, he gave me a tip of $70 in cash in American money. I couldn't get over it. All I did was carry those many coats, but none of the ordinary, just the way it was. $70 in American cash. He said, you need it, you take it. It's better in your hand than in my hand. That's the kind of guy that Ozzy Osbourne, or John Osbourne, how you want to call him, is. I met his son Adam, great person. We went around the town, showing around Halifax, and then in the taxi, I remember that, going around Halifax, showing not Ozzy, but his son Adam, the city, and his buddies. Met Zachary. And I remember when another hotel person at the Lord Nelson Hotel was shoveling the snow from his bus to the hotel so he can get in without getting his feet full of slush and water. $80 in cash to the bellman just for shoveling the snow from his bus to the hotel room. That's Ozzy Osbourne. It's just the way he was. And it was time to go. Ozzy sent his manager my way, Tony Dennis. He said, Tony, give Adam those tickets to our concert. I want him to go to our concert. So Tony gave us tickets to the concert. Tony called me before the concert at my home. I gave him a phone number and we were communicating back and forth. And he gave me and a couple of buddies of mine free tickets to his concert here at the Halifax Metro Center. And the rest was history. My very first celebrity who I met would have to be Owen Hart. This guy he had an accident with the WWE in 1999 during a pay-per-view event over the edge. Owen was supposed to descend from the audience down to the ring. He was in his harness, properly strapped, the whole 9 yards, but for some reason the harness came loose and Owen fell to the ring. Hit his shoulders here across the turnbuckle. Crushed it completely. He laid in the ring. Nobody knew what to do. One fan said it was like looking at a football player doing 1,000 push-ups. He couldn't do the last push-up before it was all over. Mick Foley seen Owen Hart being stretchered off into the stretcher into the ring, into the ambulance, and he said when the paramedics got him in the ambulance to take him to the hospital, he told Mick Foley that Owen wasn't going to make it. It's no way. It's just humanly impossible for this guy to survive. And the rest was history. Brett was on an airplane heading to Los Angeles filming. He was in the front flight the front of the plane, the flight attendant gave him the phone. It's a personal phone call, so Brett took it. It was his brother Owen. He had his accident. He died. Brett had nowhere to go. Any privacy, none whatsoever for this happened, because I would imagine just devastating what he went through. It was his brother's death. Owen was killed during a pay-per-view event for Vince McMahon at the WWE Over the Edge. And you know, when I met Owen, he was a pretty good guy. He was a joker. He made jokes. You know, he was that kind of a person. I was in the wrestling myself. I'm quite familiar with Brett's family. I've met his brother Brett a few times. Spoke to his former wrestling company that his father Stu and his brother brought back from Vince McMahon the rights to Stampede Wrestling. When I was with Mainstream Wrestling, I was looking at Stampede Wrestling a few times. We were in talks. It never happened. Some things just ain't meant to be. I didn't like the character I was given. They wanted me to be like a Shawn Michaels pretty boy look. I got obsessed over his hat. I can work with the hat gimmick, but I'm not the pretty boy kind of persona. I want to be something that relates more like to me. I couldn't get it, so I left Mainstream Wrestling, and I had to retire because of a cracked tailbone, which could have put me in the wheelchair. But at the end of the day, when I was with Owen, he was a pretty good guy. I met Owen outside the wrestling, where he was filming. WWE came to Halifax in 1997 to film Monday Night Raw. When you look at the end of the match, he jumped in the crowd. I met Owen down by the concession stands. He was going down the steps. I was coming up. That's how I met Owen. Brett, I communicated with Brett in person and over the internet a few times with Brett. You know, we were trying to work out a deal, town hall meeting about wrestling fans, what's real and what's not real. And one of the things that is real with wrestling is two things: the injuries and the contract disputes. Contract disputes happens every day with Vince McMahon and the wrestlers coming in. You'd be surprised who walked out and quit. Hulk Hogan was one of them, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and injuries is a big key factor in wrestling. But anyways, let's get out of the wrestling, and I'm going to say my very first celebrity who I met was Owen Hart. And once I started working into the Lord Nelson Hotel, and the hotels, the big names started, the celebrities started piling up. I remember when I met Chris Benoit, WWE signed my book. The book's probably worth a fortune now. He killed himself, roid rage. Unfortunately, he killed his wife and his son, 7-year-old son, and hung himself at the end. But that just shows you the dangers of professional wrestling with their brain. When they looked at Chris Benoit's, when they did his biopsy on him, his brain was at the age of an 80-year-old man. That just shows you the pain and suffering that these wrestlers go through. And the reason why they go through this pain and suffering is because wrestling, professional wrestling, is not regulated by the federal government. It needs to be regulated so these wrestlers can be looked after and properly dealt with at a responsible level. And that's the way it is. I entered the film business in February of 2009. This February coming up will mark my 10-year anniversary. And when I entered the film community, it was a fun joyride, what I wouldn't trade for the world. That had been the best job that I ever done in my entire life. It really had been. You meet all the celebrities. This guy right here is a guy who I looked up to as a kid, and I still do to this day. We communicated every now and then. This guy right here, Mr. Bill Shatner, William Shatner. William Shatner. We communicated a few times on Twitter. I gave him a nickname. He liked it. Leonard Nimoy liked it before he passed away. Called the Shatster. I looked at Bill, called him the Shatster. He's a punkster. Leonard Nimoy, said, Bill, you're a punkster in real life. You're a good man. You're a punk in real life. For some reason, you're just different. Bill Shatner, was a guy who I looked up to, and he was the driving force why I stayed in the independent level of the film. I love the film business. You create new stories, and really the film community really it's a never-ending story. There's always a story to be told in the film community. There always is. Who was it? Who was it? John Schneider. Show his face. We got John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard. He played Bo Duke. I communicated with him. He's an independent film director like myself. He communicated with me, over the phone and the computer. He said, Adam, guess what? I'm not in the acting business as much what I am. I'm mostly in the country music business. I had to reinvent myself. It worked quite a bit. We were talking about doing another J.R. Collier Hot Pursuit reunion. The movie, me and John Schneider, I sent John Schneider the script. He liked it. With J.R. Collier / reunion, we got the orange Dodge Charger sitting there. We got John Schneider sitting there. John Schneider said, here's the thing, Adam. I don't own the copyright to the Dukes of Hazzard. When you got J.R. Collier and you got me standing there with this orange Dodge Charger, it's kind of obvious what kind of show, what we're trying to do here. He said, if you can deal with all the legal battles with Warner Brothers, who owns the copyright of the Dukes of Hazzard, he said, I'll tell you what. You come up with the money for the production crew. I'll get a hold of Tom Wolpat and Kathy, Rick Hurst, whoever, and we'll do the reunion movie. J.R. Collier reunion, and all the former actors from the Dukes of Hazzard will come in with our role, play out their parts again, this under a different name. Because I said, John, this is the only way how we can do a Dukes of Hazzard reunion movie, because all the main actors are no longer with us. Denver Pyle, who played Uncle Jesse. Sorrel Buck, who played Boss Hogg. Jimmy Best, who brought all the comical angles to the Dukes of Hazzard. He's gone. Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane died back in March of 2015. I actually communicated with Jimmy Best. I remember that I sent him an email. His wife sent me back. And one thing is what Dorothy told me, that Jimmy wasn't doing that well with his health. It's going down, not up. But I remember communicating with him. He sent me a petition. He wanted to bring the Dukes of Hazzard back on the air on Country Music Television, CMT. I believe that channel's still around. But anyways, maybe not. But I signed his petition, and they brought the Dukes of Hazzard back on the air, believe it or not. And my name was on that petition because Jimmy Best came in my direction. And I was talking to Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane. And my next celebrity I was talking to, who else was that now? My next celebrity I was talking to, who else was that now? Well, John Dunsworth was the guy that got me started in the film community. I worked for his temp agency, casting agency in Halifax, Filmworks, I believe. His casting agency in Halifax, Filmworks, I believe the company folded up. I'm not sure because I don't really pay attention to what others are doing in the community. I mostly focus on my own projects. And when John died in October 17th of 2017, I was bitter and angry about his passing. Because when I looked at John Dunsworth, I never looked at him as his character, Mr. Leahy. I always refer to him as Mr. Dunsworth, John, or John Dunsworth. And I've been talking to him for about 10 years, 11 years. And not once out of that communication that I've done with John Dunsworth did I ever refer to him as Mr. Leahy. He came up to me and he's Mr. Leahy character, but I never went to him as Mr. Leahy. Always Mr. Dunsworth. Right, that's right. This is a guy who we also met in January of 2018. I used to be a member of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, politics. I dealt with many big political names in the past. Peter Kelly, Mike Savage, Peter Stauffer, Alexa Madonna, made the list go on. I communicated with people like Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump. Justin Trudeau, I was his delegate when he ran for the federal leadership race. So now my name was on the list, so he contacted me out and said, Adam, you're a card-carrying political Liberal member of the Nova Scotia and Liberal Party of Canada, and he asked if I could support him in his leadership race. And I said, Justin, the one of the things what Canada needs is a young, fresh start. Justin Trudeau was that person. I mean, his ideas may not have been realistic on what was going around them here in Canada. Nova Scotia has a very high rate of homelessness. Over 60,000 people in Nova Scotia are gone homeless because Nova Scotia's affordable housing program does not reach out to the people who actually need it. And because of that, people are living out in the woods. They're living out on their overpasses, tunnels under streets, walkways that are tunnels, the woods, you name it, they're living in it, even with kids, because Nova Scotia's affordable housing program does not reach out to the people who actually need it. Affordable housing is not affordable in Nova Scotia, and I actually question, why does Nova Scotia allow the affordable housing program to be called affordable housing when it's not actually affordable to the people who need it? Nova Scotia's community services only hands out people on the service who needs the service for rent $5.35 a month. And you and I all know that rent starts a hell of a lot higher than $5.35 a month, at least $6.67 a month, and even that's getting to be outdated. And that just goes to show you that, Justin, you need to look around what's going on around you. I mean, even Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, Canada is starting to go down, not up, not forward, but down, and that's because I believe Justin Trudeau means well, but he's just not into the reality of what's going on around him, and unfortunately, those are the things that happens when people are elected, when they're not tuning in on what's going around them out in the community. And I believe Justin will win the next federal election, but it won't be no massive landslide like it was in October of 2015. It won't even be close to that. I predict he'll lose people like Daryl Sampson, maybe what's his name, Darren Fisher. These guys may lose out because their liberal leaders just not into the reality of what's going on around them. Because of that, it's a sad thing that's happening. But the only thing that I like about Justin Trudeau, what he did was the legislation of marijuana. That should have been done 50 years ago, like same-sex marriage. That should have been done 50 years ago. Nobody cares about it, and people could care less. We legalized marijuana, yes, it should have been done a long time ago, but here's the problem. Canada has no marijuana doctors that deals with that topic, and because of it, now people in Canada has nothing to look forward to say, all right, if I take this drug, what's the future outcome going to look like if I take this? What's going to happen? What's my side effects, or if any? You don't know that, and you got to have those doctors before you bring legislation into effect, and because of that, people are up in the air in limbo. We don't know what's going to come, but that's what I can say about that.